Welcome to Millennium Counseling Center's podcast, where each week we go in depth into all things mental health, addiction recovery, and being our healthiest and happiest self. Enjoy. So today we are staying on the path of just getting to know each other deeper and having honest conversations. And I think in preparation for that, we really caught up on life, and you're all over the world, and I'm still in Chicago, and I'm just really interested in kind of the idea of change and how you identified the part of you that felt like it needed to make some changes or evolve, and kind of what did you notice when that happened, and then what did you begin to do to make those changes happen in your life?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Change is a big subject topic for me. I feel like I've been obsessed with change for probably the last 8 years. And kind of short and long story, because I feel like there's no short story version of this. But I think it really kicks off for me in 2018, where I was working a highly stressful corporate job. There were some differences in working styles for one of the companies that I was working for than the other. I worked for two different companies at the same time, which was a unique experience. And one was very entrepreneurial, trustworthy. I was empowered. It was a very aligned working environment for me. And the other was very secretive, very micromanagement oriented, non trustworthy, non empowering. And to be working in both of these environments all the time, every day, was challenging. So on one side, it's like, you're doing a great job, go do more of this. This is amazing. And then you go out, why are you doing that? That's crap. We don't want that. And it's like every day of your life is in this conflicted, fracturing environment of going from both sides. So this was during a time where Virgil Abloh was doing like the off-white releases on Nike, on the Nike app.
Yep.
And you would try to get these off-white releases, and I was never getting one. And then the Blazers came out, and I get I went into the raffle and I get the thing, oh, you've won. I was like, oh shit, I got these off-whites. They're like $200 retail, and then immediately they're worth $800 in a resale market. But I just really wanted these shoes, and I got them. And so my company had just moved to a new building at the time, and the address for the new building wasn't registered with the London post office. And so I put all of my information to get the package delivered to that building, but they couldn't find the building because it was so new. So I have these shoes. I can see Nike's trying to deliver them. They can't deliver them to me, and they're being like not delivered to this company that's causing me stress. And then I got like the message, we can't find you. We're sending these shoes back to raffle and they're no longer yours. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like freaking out in a conference room at work about some fucking shoes when I'm an executive working on, multi-million-dollar deals, and I'm freaking out about some shoes. So that showed me that I was missing some skills. This wasn't about the shoes. This was about something else, that I'm not in control. I'm like overstressed and looking for outlets to manage my stress. And something needed to change. And like, okay, what is missing? Like, okay, I'm not resilient enough. So I did some research, found a book on resilience, learned all these tools and techniques about resilience. Like, okay, that was great. What else don't I know? And so I went down this rabbit hole of like podcasts, courses, just learning everything I can about making me a better person, like changing myself. And there was a course I took where I got introduced to values in a really explicit way, which I haven't been before. and specifically a value hierarchy. So their idea was, we all have values that are given to us by religion, our families, the communities we're involved in, social media, work, whatever. And then they influence our life. And their hypothesis is like, how often have you actually chosen your values? And then to go further, what's the hierarchy? How do you rank your values? Because they don't all have the same importance.
Mhm.
So you say, your top 10 values could be freedom, trust, family, whatever these things are. But if your number one is freedom and your number eight is trust, if something happens or trust, you shouldn't respond to it the same way as if it was freedom because they're not equal for you. But if you don't know that hierarchy, you may respond to everything the same way. And to go further with that, because I didn't know my values, I was just having difficulties at work. Once I knew my values, like, oh, wow, my work values are under assault every single day. So my environment is not transparent, and that's a high value for me. There's not a lot of accountability, and that's a high value for me.
Mm.
There's not a lot of trust, and that's a high value for me. And I realized maybe 5 out of my 6 top work values were in conflict every single day. And how I was trained in that put your head down, grind through, power through, you can tough it out. You can't tough it out if you're in complete conflict with the place you work. You just should not be there. That's my view. But without knowing my values, I was just experiencing stress or experiencing something's not right. And so that's my early thoughts around change.
Something hit you where your reaction to something was greater than what you believed it should be, and that kind of sparked you kinda to have an internal dialogue around what that was about.
100%. 100%. And it showed up. The shoe example was a light story, but there's a heavier story to it as well, where my partner at the time, my best friend, we had a large conflict that was the result of me operating outside of my values and not being able to put in boundaries around certain situations and me not even being aware of that. And I handled the situation very poorly, and it hurt like the two people at the time that I cared about the most, and it hurt both of them. And my self reflection of that's not good enough. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't able to handle a situation in the way that I hope to be able to handle it. And I hurt the people that I care about. And that's not how I choose to move through the world. So something has to change. And so the shoe example is like a kind of playful one. And then there's like this real tangible of like, I hurt people that I care about. And that's not what I want to do. I'm like, joyful, bringer of love. I like to do this. And that's not what I'm bringing to the people that I care most about. So something has to change. Something has to be different.
Yeah. Yeah, I would probably say the 2 things for me, one we touched on last time around relationships and how I needed to learn how to show up for myself in a relationship to be actually of value for a partner. But I think the other one was around work, where I kind of undervalued what I was I was both over and undervaluing what I was doing. I thought I was very good, but I didn't give it a ton of value. And so I had a lot of confidence, but then I wasn't pushing myself because it didn't seem like it was like a business. It was more like I was treating it like a hobby, but it was my profession. And it was like I was okay with ending up in single A baseball, but like believing that I deserved to be in the majors. And like a lot of that was because the framework for me growing up was never prioritizing work ahead of other things, friendships, relationships, because if work was prioritized really high, then that would negatively impact those relationships. And what I kind of learned from that was that that was a really limiting belief in myself and my ability. And I had kind of an interesting story where I went out to lunch at like a kind of a well-known Italian beef spot in Chicago, and I had this really strange interaction with a patron who completely changed the trajectory of my life, where he drove up in front of the restaurant, the beef stand, in a Rolls Royce, had a mink coat on and a three-piece suit, got his lunch, and sat right next to me, and we talked for, like, 45 minutes. I've never been in this place longer than 15 minutes to, like, eat shove it in my mouth, drink the drink and a few fries and get out, like, wash my hands as best I can with the napkins again. I was there for 45 minutes, and what he had kinda talked about was putting himself through law school by driving a cab, a taxi in Chicago, and then becoming a script writer in Hollywood and a lawyer, and his insight into, like, what was holding me back professionally. And I'll never forget, he was kinda like, "Oren, you're a cloud, and you're connected to all these other clouds of, like, friends and family and old ideas, and you need to branch off and become your own cloud." And
Mm.
I was 30, 31 at the time, and that changed everything.
Yeah, what did that mean to you in that moment? Like, even hearing that, how he phrased that.
Y Yeah, I mean, what it meant to me was that whatever I'd made up about what work was or who I needed to be or what I needed to be, that I needed to separate myself to figure that out for myself.
And then practically, what came next when you were faced with the desire or, the awareness that something needed to change?
Mhm. I didn't let those old things hold me back from pursuing bigger goals, working harder, striving for things that could potentially have put me in a position, if I was living with the old mindset, to hurt others based on what I was doing in terms of my professional drive, work ethic, unavailability in terms of my time and my mental capacity to be there for others. Like if I was living in that old mindset, I would be living with all of that junk inside of me, but I really didn't. Like once I felt like I became my own cloud, it was as if all of those things weren't weighing me down.
Mm. What was the most difficult part of that separation from the old version of yourself to this different cloud?
Mhm. Really valuing really valuing what I was doing, and that I wasn't just having conversations with people to help them in their life, like, that what was going on was the transitions of life-altering changes that were happening in people's lives that were a really big deal. That I wasn't like a support staff that kind of just, like, helped along the team. I was in the center of that arena, to use a Brené or who did she quote? The famous
Yeah, I
quote.
think it's like a yeah, it's like a Roosevelt quote or
There you
something
go.
about being in the
And that was
arena.
me. Like that was it was my show. And in order for me to be the best at it, I needed to own that I was in the middle of it.